So the crypto circus continues to enjoy mindshare from the States, especially with the recently signed executive order on Bitcoin Strategic Reserve in the US. And earlier, the announcement of a crypto reserve, not just Bitcoin, which I think they are backtracking on now. There's so much to talk about, guys, in this video. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm your host, FD465.tv, and today we want to review the so-called US Bitcoin Strategic Reserve and digital asset stockpile following the recently signed executive order by current President Donald Trump. What's going to happen and what's in it for the crypto markets and Bitcoin itself? That's what we want to jump into and share with you guys our thoughts and what we think is going to happen next. But before I proceed, guys, please know that I am not a financial advisor. I'm just some dude on the internet who enjoys anything crypto related, and I bring you guys educational content from time to time as well as entertainment content. Come on, I think I'm trying. But if you're not subscribed, guys, please consider subscribing to our channel. We are one of the few channels that brings you original content that you won't find anywhere else, and we don't just regurgitate news that have been shared elsewhere or published elsewhere. We actually have a small team that does some research for you guys to bring you some value, and it's up to you then to see if you want to learn or you just want to be given a token or coin to invest in to make a lot of money, which in most cases is not guaranteed. It's 50-50. You lose everything, you gain something. That's how it works. Because if it was that easy that someone can just feed you a great project to invest in and you make lots of money, everyone will be rich and all this will be pointless. That said, guys, let's come back to this video then. The US Bitcoin Strategic Reserve and the digital asset stockpile. Let's start with the strengths and strategic justifications for this. I think the first clear strength here is the acknowledgement that Bitcoin is a strategic asset at governmental level, country level. The US is treating Bitcoin as a reserve asset, which aligns with the increasing global recognition of Bitcoin's role as digital gold. The limited supply of 21 million BTC ensures scarcity, similar to gold reserves, which adds weight to the decision. Only that gold is not limited, isn't it? Because they keep exploring for more gold mines and so forth. The only thing that will stop gold or restrict the flow of gold is the cost of extracting it from the ground. But if better methods are found, for example, if the space race leads to space wars on minerals, gold might be in abundance in the universe, and we may not even need to dig the ground to get it. We just send something into space, goes and collects some massive boulders of bits of gold and stuff, brings them down. There you go, you're rich. So establishing a formal governmental policy on Bitcoin holdings prevents ad hoc liquidations that may be counterproductive to national interest. But then, if it's just an executive order, another executive order can undo all that. So you actually need regulations from cross-party Senate, House of Representatives, or just the House of Congress. Next, capitalization on existing holdings. I think the use of forfeited Bitcoin that was seized through criminal or civil asset forfeiture as an initial source of capitalization means no additional taxpayer burden, and I think that is a masterstroke. It secures what they already had, because I believe they lost a potential, which in crypto we say paper profits. They lost on gains of approximately 17 billion because they sold Bitcoin that was seized from, I think it was Silk Road, and that resulted in missed opportunities. 17 billion. It's a drop into an ocean, but 17 billion, they could have done a lot with it instead of the $500 million they got. So that's sheer incompetence. I think Germany will look back and do the same as well, because they sold about 50,000 Bitcoin recently. The UK have got a pile of Bitcoins. I don't know if they've sold them or they are thinking of it, because at the moment, no one seems to be interested in anything crypto from the politicians, so to speak. Next, you got government control over digital assets. Well, centralizing digital asset oversight ensures accountability, tracking, and risk mitigation, but it also has its own downsides. Previous federal agency fragmentation led to inefficient management of seized digital assets. This latest executive order aims to correct this and bring coherence to digital asset stewardship. Next is the positioning of the US as a leader in crypto, which is what Donald Trump campaigned on. Whether it was opportunistic or otherwise, that's something else. Establishing a crypto-friendly government strategy will attract crypto businesses, investors, and innovation to the US. Look at all the countries, like especially Saudi Arabia, UAE, and stuff. People are flocking to Dubai. Why? Because the country is friendly to crypto. Developers are going there, exchanges are going there. People who have made millions in crypto or making millions crypto, they're flocking to Dubai because they are being welcomed. And the benefits are huge. Employment, they provide employment, create new jobs and stuff. So I can see where Donald Trump is trying to go with this, but it's got, like I said, it's got to be through regulations, because executive orders can be revoked or someone can pass a counter executive order, the next candidate for president. That is, they can just pass another executive order to go in the opposite direction. And hosting a White House crypto summit and appointing a crypto czar signals serious intent intend to make the US a lead within the digital asset space. But there are some potential risks and challenges to consider as well. Let's not forget that you got to balance these things. You got the euphoria and the optimism. You got to balance it or temper it with some realism and pragmatism. Let's look at geopolitics and economic risks. Bitcoin's volatility, for example, it still remains highly volatile compared to other assets, and while it has long-term appreciation potential, short-term price fluctuations could impact the US's balance sheet unpredictably. Global market reactions as well. Other nations may view this as an aggressive economic move, potentially influencing their stance on crypto regulations or leading to a competitive rush to acquire Bitcoin reserves for their own countries. And decoupling from US dollar dominance, this is where Bitcoin's rise as a sovereign reserve asset could, over time, challenge the dominance of the US dollar in global trade, especially if nations opt to settle international trade using Bitcoin instead of the US dollar. So this actually has some traction, and I think certain parts of the world have tried to do this, and certain organizations or global organizations have tried to do this. How successful they are getting it, I have no idea, but I know the BRICS countries have tried that, and there was a lot of impetus in what they were trying to do. I don't know why and how it is stalled. And the other risk is around security and custodianship issues. A government-held Bitcoin reserve requires a secure, tamper-proof storage and management system. We know there are some country actors that are hacking into projects within the space or exchanges. Recently, it was Bybit, 1.5 billion gone. The Lazarus group from North Korea was blamed for that, and there was evidence of that. So that's something to pay attention to. It doesn't matter whether it's the US or not. This is new to everybody, including the US. They cannot be complacent that they are the US, nothing will happen, because you can't bring your guns onto the blockchains and try and police it. Okay, that's something to keep in mind. So a government-held Bitcoin reserve requires a secure, tamper-proof storage and management system. Issues such as hacks, insider threats, and technical mishandling could pose risks. The US would need clear legal frameworks on how Bitcoin in its reserve is stored, used, and reported in financial statements. Political risks and future administration reversals, something we've been talking about right from the top of this video. Someone could come in with a counter EO or executive order to reverse the action that Donald Trump has taken using this executive order. Therefore, regulations coming from Congress will be the only way out. So the political risks and future administration reversals is a real thing. If Bitcoin remains politically polarizing, bipartisan cooperation will be essential to ensure the policy's longevity beyond President Trump's term is in place. Otherwise, this will not last. This will only last for 4 years, and then after 4 years, we are dealing with a different beast, unless someone with a similar mind comes into the White House. Otherwise, we'll be dealing with this again in a very short period of time, because 4 years in crypto is a very short period of time, even though sometimes a day will feel like a year. It happens. I also have an issue with what's being dubbed the digital asset stockpile strategy, which I think is unclear, because I don't know what they're trying to do here. It's good that they're considering some leading altcoins as part of the stockpile, but what is the strategy? Is it just an open door policy where they take anything that knocks on the door, or there is an actual strategy? We'll learn more, because at the time of recording this video, guys, some of these things will have changed by the time the video is edited and posted, because of that White House meeting or meetup that people are going to sit down and discuss and come up with something, and they're going to make some announcements. So by the time this video is actually shared and posted, it will probably be several days after the day of recording. But that's something to consider, a strategy on the digital asset stockpile. Or Bitcoin is retained indefinitely. The digital asset stockpile, or USDAS or USDAS, allows for potential asset sales. It is still unclear which assets will be held, even though they announced Solana, Ethereum, Cardano, and XRP. We still don't know whether that is it or there will be more. And it is still unclear how their value will be managed and whether US agencies will play an active role in shaping regulations for these assets. Future actions for the US administration, they've got the strengthening of the legal and regulatory framework, enacting a comprehensive digital asset management law that formalizes the strategic Bitcoin reserve and the digital asset stockpile to ensure continuity across administrations. I think that is quite key, and Congress will be key here. They need to pass laws and regulations that govern this. There is also a need to develop a clear auditing standard and transparency mechanisms to avoid mismanagement. Again, these are digital assets. Even though people can track, this is the other thing, is the exciting thing. They could just leave them there and trust the people in position. If someone moves something, people will be watching like hawks. I'm sure there will be automatic bots as well watching these assets. As soon as you move 10 ADA or 10 XRP, someone will say, oh, the US government is selling some XRP or ADA. That will be interesting to know as well. The next potential action could be the establishment of a strategic accumulation policies. How are they going to be accumulating more Bitcoin and more altcoins for their stockpile? Even though they've claimed they are not going to be using taxpayer dollars to buy either Bitcoin Bitcoin or assets for the stockpile. Bitcoin, they've specifically said they are going to be accumulating more using budget-neutral mechanisms to buy additional Bitcoin, not using taxpayer funds, making taxpayer-funded purchases. But are they going to resist the idea of buying, say, XRP in a bear market and sell it in a bull market? I don't think so. I think they'll do that just to gain more returns on their holdings. I think we've got to look out for that as well. And the administration should also explore budget-neutral accumulation strategies such as Bitcoin mining incentives for US-based mining firms to enhance domestic BTC production, public-private partnerships with institutions that hold Bitcoin, enhancing security and custody solutions. That's another challenge that they need to consider. Given hacking risks and the potential loss of Bitcoin due to poor custodianship, the US government must implement government cold storage solutions with multi-signature security. It didn't stop the guys who hacked Bybit. Wait and see how this takes place or how this develops. Transparent reserve audits, similar to how gold reserves are managed. I think this one here, don't worry too much about it. It's on the blockchain. People just go to Arkham and they will be tracking these wallets, and yep, no Satoshi will be lost, believe me, because people will be watching these wallets like hawks. The next challenge will be around diplomatic and global crypto strategy. The US should engage in global discussions on digital asset reserves, possibly influencing international financial institutions such as IMF, World Bank to consider Bitcoin as a sovereign reserve asset. You can see at the moment the relationship between some of the major players within, say, G7 and G20. They're fractured at the moment. So it will take some soul-seeking and courtships and stuff like that. At the moment, I can't see any of the leading economies and their leaders sitting around the table and agreeing on something as extreme as the digital assets or crypto. Because in other countries, they are still occupying one end of the scale, whereas the US seem to be moving to the opposite end, i.e. being liberal towards cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin. So that is yet to be seen. But say other nations follow suit and they follow what the US is doing, I think the US should try and leverage its first move advantage to dictate global crypto policy standards. But they're not the first ones though. They are the first major, but they're not the first ones. So you got the likes of El Salvador, they've been doing it for a while, and there are a few countries in the Middle East and some in Europe who have been making moves or about to make moves. So they will probably jump in before the US does. And I can also see the UK copying what the US does because they don't have their own backbone to make their own decisions. They'll probably just adapt the same approach to convert the seized assets that they hold. I think they've got something in the region of 50-something thousand, if not a lot more, that they can convert to their own stockpile and not sell. They should actually involve the House of Commons for that so that it cannot be reversed. Otherwise, if it's based on a political party, someone will come in and just sell and say, oh, we're going to release some much needed cash to help with our investment agenda or whatever wasteful initiative they come up with. That happens in politics. Will other countries follow though? Will they follow suit? Well, Bitcoin reserve adoption by rival nations. Well, countries already accumulating Bitcoin like El Salvador, possibly Russia and China, through indirect channels may accelerate their efforts. Emerging economies may also begin holding Bitcoin as a hedge against the US dollar, the US dollar dominance, and central bank digital currencies as well. This may be accelerated. Some nations such as China with its digital yuan, the EU with its digital euro, may counter this move by accelerating CBDC adoption, then becomes a rival. Governments that oppose Bitcoin's decentralized nature may tighten regulations to enforce bans. What about Western allies and NATO members' response? Well, pro-US allies such as the UK, Canada, and EU, but that relationship is on a tightrope at the moment. But they may adopt a similar reserve strategy if the US provides strong evidence of benefits. But with the way things are going at the moment, I can't see these guys coming to an agreement on anything. The IMF and the World Bank may be pressured to recognize Bitcoin as a global monetary asset. My thoughts on these guys is that the establishment of a strategic Bitcoin reserve and digital asset stockpile in the States is a bold move and unprecedented policy shift. It aligns with the US's long-term technological and financial interests, but also introduces significant political, economic, and security risks. If I were to be called to the table to discuss this, I will have some key recommendations and I'll probably put forward a few, 3, 4 or so. I'll say you should start by strengthening the legal frameworks for continuity across administrations. That's quite key. It then means the policy is sustainable. They also need to develop long-term Bitcoin acquisition strategies beyond seized assets, because I don't think just sitting on what they've seized now and banking on future seizures is a strategy. I don't think so. They need to come up with something else. Invest in a robust security and custodial solutions to prevent mismanagement. And finally, engage in a global diplomacy to shape international digital asset policies, because I think that's quite important. This technology transcends national boundaries, so I think it requires global collaboration where governments of all shades and size come together and shape the policies going forward. After all, this is the future of finance, so you need there to be interoperability, collaboration, and just establishing the same baseline across the board. But I also believe that if this is managed properly and correctly, this move could cement the US as the global leader in Bitcoin and digital asset adoption, while redefining global financial structures in the process. However, the execution, bipartisan support, and long-term commitment will still determine the success or failure of this policy, the Bitcoin and digital asset policy. What do you guys think? If you live in the US, what do you think about all this? Are you on board? Let us know in the comment section. Until the next one, guys, this is FD for Search5.tv signing out for now. Bye.